Mike Johnson was just trying to get home to his 7-year-old daughter when he saw the smoke. The Mercedes was on fire, a little girl trapped inside, screaming. He had 30 seconds before the flames spread. What he didn't know was that saving her would change both their lives forever. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. Mike Johnson wiped the sweat from his forehead as he finished his shift at the construction site. His hands were rough and dirty, his back ached, but he smiled anyway. Today was Friday, which meant pizza night with his 7-year-old daughter, Emma. It was their special tradition, something they had started after her mother left them 2 years ago. He drove his old pickup truck through the busy streets, thinking about Emma waiting for him at the daycare. She was probably drawing another picture for him like she did every day. His little girl was his whole world, and even though money was tight, he made sure she never felt like she was missing anything. Mike worked 2 jobs to make ends meet. During the day he worked construction, and 3 nights a week he cleaned offices. Every penny went toward rent, food, and Emma's needs. He never complained though. Being a single dad was hard, but Emma's smile made everything worth it. As he drove down Maple Street, he was thinking about what pizza toppings Emma would choose tonight. She always picked pepperoni, but she liked to pretend she was deciding between different options. It made him laugh every time. That's when he saw the smoke. A black Mercedes had crashed into a tree on the side of the road. Thick smoke was pouring from under the hood, and small flames were starting to appear. Other cars were slowing down, but no one was stopping. Everyone seemed to be calling 911 and driving past. Mike pulled over immediately. His heart was pounding as he ran toward the car. Through the cracked window he could see a little girl in the back seat. She looked about Emma's age, maybe younger. She was crying and trying to unbuckle her seatbelt, but her hands were shaking too much. "Hey sweetie, I'm here to help," Mike shouted through the window. The front seat was empty. The driver must have been thrown from the car. He looked around quickly but didn't see anyone else. The little girl looked at him with big, scared brown eyes. "I can't get out. The door won't open." Mike tried the back door, but it was jammed from the crash. The smoke was getting thicker and he could feel the heat getting stronger. He had maybe 2 minutes before the fire spread. "What's your name, honey?" he asked, trying to stay calm for her sake. "Sophie," she whispered. "Sophie, I'm Mike. I'm going to get you out, okay? But I need you to cover your face with your shirt." Mike grabbed a rock from the roadside and smashed the back window. Glass scattered everywhere, but he carefully cleared the sharp pieces. The smoke was so thick now that he could barely see. "Sophie, I need you to climb toward me, okay? Be very careful of the glass." The little girl was brave. Even though she was scared and crying, she crawled toward the window. Mike reached in and carefully lifted her out, making sure not to cut her on the broken glass. Just as he pulled her to safety, the front of the car burst into flames. Mike held Sophie close as they waited for the ambulance. She was coughing from the smoke and she had a few small cuts, but she was alive. That's what mattered. "Where's my mommy?" Sophie asked through her tears. "I don't know, sweetheart, but the paramedics will help us find her," Mike said softly. He couldn't tell this little girl that he was worried her mother might have been hurt badly in the crash. At the hospital, Mike stayed with Sophie while the doctors checked her over. She wouldn't let go of his hand. The nurses tried to find information about her family, but the car was registered to a company, not a person. "Mommy was talking on the phone," Sophie told Mike. Then she was crying and driving fast. Then everything went scary. Mike's heart broke for this little girl. He thought about Emma, who was probably wondering where he was. He called the daycare to explain he would be late. "There was an accident," he told Mrs. Peterson at the daycare. "I'm helping a little girl at the hospital. Can Emma wait a little longer?" "Of course, Mike. Emma is fine. She's drawing pictures. Take your time." Hours passed. The police came and took Mike's statement. They still couldn't find Sophie's mother or any family members. Sophie fell asleep in the hospital bed, still holding Mike's hand. A social worker came to talk to Mike. "We need to place her in temporary care until we can find her family," she said. "Can I stay with her tonight?" Mike asked. "She's scared and she doesn't know anyone else." The social worker looked surprised. "Sir, that's very kind, but we have procedures." "Please," Mike said quietly. "I have a daughter her age. I know how scared she must be. Just let me stay until morning." Finally they agreed. Mike called Mrs. Peterson again to pick up Emma and take her home. He hated missing pizza night, but he couldn't leave Sophie alone. The next morning, Mike took Emma to the hospital to meet Sophie. He had explained everything to his daughter, and Emma had insisted on bringing Sophie one of her favorite stuffed animals. "Hi Sophie," Emma said shyly. I brought you Mr. Bunny. He helps me when I'm scared. Sophie smiled for the first time since the accident. Thank you. He's very soft. The two girls became fast friends immediately. While they played quietly in the hospital room, Mike talked to the police and social workers. They had found Sophie's mother. She's in critical condition at City General Hospital, Officer Martinez told Mike. Car accident about 2 miles from where you found the daughter. The mother was thrown from the vehicle. She's been unconscious since yesterday. Mike's heart sank. What about other family? We're still looking. The mother's ID shows her name is Victoria Chin. We found business cards showing she's the CEO of Chin Industries, but no emergency contacts for family. Mike knew that name. Chin Industries was one of the biggest companies in the city. Their logo was on billboards everywhere. He had no idea he had saved the daughter of such a wealthy woman. What happens to Sophie now? He asked. If we can't find family, she'll go into temporary foster care, the social worker explained. Mike looked through the window at Sophie and Emma playing together. Sophie was laughing at something Emma was doing with Mr. Bunny. It was the first time she had laughed since the accident. Can I be her temporary guardian? Mike asked suddenly. Everyone stared at him. Sir, you barely know this child, the social worker said. I know she's scared and alone. I know she needs someone who cares about her. And I know my daughter has already decided Sophie is her new best friend. It took hours of paperwork and background checks, but finally they agreed to let Mike take Sophie home temporarily. It would only be until they found her family or until her mother woke up. Mike's small apartment suddenly felt even smaller with 2 little girls running around. He gave Sophie his bed and slept on the couch. Emma insisted on sharing all her toys, her clothes, and even her toothbrush until Mike could buy Sophie her own. Sophie was polite and quiet, very different from energetic Emma. She said please and thank you for everything and seemed amazed by the simplest things, like when Mike made pancakes for breakfast or when they all watched cartoons together. At home, the cook makes my food, Sophie told them, and I eat by myself in the big dining room. Mike realized that despite all her family's money, Sophie had been lonely. She had nannies and drivers and tutors, but she had never had someone read her bedtime stories or help her brush her teeth. Emma appointed herself as Sophie's big sister, even though Sophie was actually a few months older. She showed Sophie how to help make dinner, how to play games, and how to build blanket forts in the living room. Daddy, Emma said one night as Mike tucked them both into bed, can Sophie stay forever? Mike's heart squeezed. He had been wondering the same thing. In just a week, Sophie had become part of their little family. But he knew her real family would come for her soon. We'll see, sweetheart, he said softly. Mike got the call on a Tuesday morning. Victoria Chin had finally woken up. She was asking for her daughter. Mike felt a mix of relief and sadness. He was happy that Sophie would see her mother again, but he knew their little family was about to change forever. Sophie, honey, I have good news, he told her gently. Your mommy is awake. She wants to see you. Sophie's face lit up, but then she looked worried. Will you come with me? Of course. At City General Hospital, Mike held Sophie's hand as they walked down the long hallway. Sophie was nervous, chattering about everything she wanted to tell her mother. Victoria Chin was awake but weak. She had bandages on her head and her arm was in a cast. When she saw Sophie, tears started flowing down her face. Sophie. Oh my baby, I was so scared. Victoria reached out with her good arm. Sophie ran to her mother's bed. Mommy? I missed you so much. Mike stood back and watched the reunion. His heart was happy but also breaking a little. He knew this was right, but he would miss Sophie terribly. After a few minutes, Victoria looked up at Mike. You must be Mike. The nurse told me you're the one who saved my daughter. Mike nodded. I'm just glad she's safe. The nurse also told me you've been taking care of her all this time. Victoria's voice was full of emotion. How can I ever thank you? No thanks needed, ma'am. Sophie is a wonderful little girl. Victoria studied Mike's face. She could see the genuine kindness in his eyes, the same kindness that had made him risk his life for a stranger's child. A few days later, Victoria was released from the hospital. She had her driver pick up Sophie from Mike's apartment. Sophie cried when she had to say goodbye to Emma and Mike. I'll miss you so much, Sophie told Emma through her tears. I'll miss you too. You're my best sister ever. Mike hugged Sophie tight. You be good for your mommy, okay? And remember, you're always brave, just like you were in the car. As he watched the expensive black car drive away, Mike felt a hole in his chest. Emma was crying too. Will we see Sophie again? Emma asked. I don't know, sweetheart. But we'll always remember her. That evening Mike and Emma had a quiet dinner. The apartment felt too big and too empty without Sophie's gentle presence. 3 days later there was a knock on the door. Mike opened it to find Victoria Chin standing there, but she looked very different from the polished businesswoman he had expected. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater and she had been crying. "Mrs. Chin? Is everything okay? Is Sophie all right? May I come in?" Victoria asked quietly. Mike stepped aside to let her in. Emma ran from her bedroom when she heard voices. "Sophie's mommy?" Emma exclaimed. Victoria knelt down to Emma's level. "Hi Emma. Sophie talks about you all the time." Victoria stood up and faced Mike. "I need to talk to you about something important." They sat down in Mike's small living room. Victoria looked around at the simple apartment, the worn couch, the small TV, the pictures of Mike and Emma on the walls. "Before the accident," Victoria began, "I was driving to my lawyer's office to finalize my divorce. Sophie's father, he's not a good man. He never wanted children. He's been having affairs and treating us both badly for years." Mike listened quietly. "I was crying and angry and driving too fast. I almost killed my daughter because I was so caught up in my own problems." Victoria's voice broke. "But you risked your life for her. You didn't know who she was, you didn't know if you'd get any reward, but you saved her anyway." "Anyone would have done the same thing," Mike said. "No," Victoria shook her head. "That's not true. And then, you took care of her for weeks. She's told me everything. How you gave her your bed. How Emma shared all her toys. How you read them both stories every night and made pancakes in funny shapes." Victoria wiped tears from her eyes. "Sophie has never been happier in her whole life than she was staying with you and Emma. She's never had anyone take care of her with such genuine love." Mike didn't know what to say. "I've been thinking for 3 days," Victoria continued, "about what kind of life I want for Sophie. About what really matters." Victoria took a deep breath. "I want to make you an offer, Mike. But first, I need you to know that this isn't charity. This is investment in my daughter's happiness." She pulled out a folder from her purse. "I want to buy you a house. A big house where Sophie can have her own room, but where she can still be close to you and Emma." Mike stared at her. "Mrs. Chin, I can't accept. Please let me finish." Victoria held up her hand. "I've also set up a college fund for Emma. Full tuition wherever she wants to go." Mike shook his head. "That's too much. I didn't save Sophie for money." "I know you didn't. That's exactly why I'm offering it." Victoria leaned forward. "Mike, I'm a businesswoman. I know how to judge people. You are the most genuinely good person I have ever met. And my daughter loves you and Emma like family." She paused. "I'm not asking you to take my money and disappear. I'm asking you to let me be part of your family, and let you be part of ours." Emma, who had been listening quietly, suddenly spoke up. "Does this mean Sophie can come back?" Victoria smiled at Emma. "If your daddy agrees, Sophie and I would like to be your neighbors. Close neighbors." Mike was overwhelmed. "Mrs. Chin." "Victoria. Please call me Victoria." "Victoria, this is incredibly generous, but I need to think about Emma. I don't want her growing up thinking money solves everything." "You're right," Victoria nodded. "That's exactly the kind of thinking that makes you the right person for this. I don't want Sophie growing up thinking money solves everything either. I want her to learn the values you've taught Emma: kindness, generosity, hard work, and genuine love." Victoria pulled out another paper. "I have one more offer. I want to hire you to head up the community outreach program for Chin Industries. It's a real job with real responsibilities. You'd be helping other families, organizing charity drives, building playgrounds in low-income neighborhoods." Mike looked at the job description. The salary was 3 times what he made working his 2 current jobs. "Why?" he asked simply. "Because you have something my money can't buy. You know what it's like to struggle and you still choose kindness. I need someone like that to help me make sure Chin Industries actually helps people, not just profits from them." 1 month later, Mike and Emma moved into a beautiful house just 2 blocks away from Victoria and Sophie. It wasn't a mansion, but it was perfect: 4 bedrooms, a big backyard, and a kitchen large enough for family dinners. Mike's new job was challenging but rewarding. He worked with Victoria to identify families in need and create programs to help them. They built 3 new playgrounds in poor neighborhoods. They started a scholarship program for single parents going back to school. They created a job training program for people getting back on their feet. The best part was that Sophie and Emma were together again. They went to the same school, had sleepovers every weekend, and were truly like sisters. Victoria had changed too. She spent less time at the office and more time being a mom. She learned to make pancakes, though they were never as good as Mike's. She read bedtime stories. She even learned to braid hair. I spent so many years thinking success meant working all the time, Victoria told Mike one evening as they watched the girls play in the backyard. Sophie was growing up with nannies because I thought providing money was the same as providing love. You're a good mom, Mike said. Sophie adores you. She adores you too. You know she calls you her second daddy, right? Mike smiled. Emma calls you her bonus mom. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughters chase fireflies in the growing dusk. A year and a half after the accident, Mike and Victoria got married. It wasn't a huge ceremony, just close friends, Emma and Sophie as flower girls, and Mike's construction crew buddies sitting next to Victoria's business associates. The night before the wedding, Victoria found Mike sitting on the porch, looking thoughtful. Second thoughts? She asked gently. No, Mike shook his head. Just thinking about how much life can change in a moment. If I hadn't driven down Maple Street that day. But you did, Victoria sat beside him. You did because you're the kind of person who notices when people need help. I keep thinking Sophie's real father might come back someday and cause problems. Victoria took his hand. Sophie's real father is the man who reads her bedtime stories and teaches her to ride a bike and shows her what it means to be kind to others. Legal papers don't make someone a father, love does. The wedding was small but perfect. Emma and Sophie had planned the whole thing, insisting on purple flowers and butterfly decorations. When Mike and Victoria kissed, the girls cheered louder than all the adults combined. During the reception, Victoria's business partner pulled Mike aside. I have to admit, when Victoria first told me about you, I was worried she was making emotional decisions. But watching you two together and seeing how happy Sophie is, this is the smartest business decision she's ever made. Mike laughed. Business decision? The business of living a happy life, the man clarified with a grin. As the Chin-Johnson family grew and flourished, they never forgot where they came from. Mike continued his community outreach work, but now Victoria was his full partner in it. They started a foundation called Second Chances that helped families in crisis. They built transitional housing for single parents. They created emergency funds for families facing medical crises. They started mentorship programs pairing successful adults with at-risk children. Every year on the anniversary of Sophie's accident, they hosted a community service day. Hundreds of volunteers would come together to clean parks, build playgrounds, serve meals at homeless shelters, and read to children at hospitals. We want to teach the girls that when life gives you blessings, you share them, Victoria explained to a reporter who was covering their foundation work. Sophie, now 9 years old, was interviewed too. My daddy Mike saved me from a fire, and now we save other people from bad things happening to them. Emma, also 9, nodded seriously. When you help people, it makes their hearts happy and your heart happy too. The foundation's motto, suggested by Emma, was simple: help first, ask questions later. 5 years after the accident, Mike was driving down Maple Street with both girls in the car. They were heading to Emma's soccer game. As they passed the spot where Sophie's car had crashed, Sophie spoke up from the back seat. Daddy, Mike stopped the car. Mike pulled over, concerned. What's wrong, sweetheart? Sophie got out of the car and walked to the tree where her mother's Mercedes had crashed. There was no sign of the accident now. The tree had healed, new bark growing over the scars. Emma and Mike followed her. I want to say thank you, Sophie said quietly. To who, honey? Mike asked. To God, to the tree, to the angels, to whoever made sure you were driving by that day. Sophie put her small hand on the tree trunk. I was so scared that day, but it was actually the best day of my life because it brought me to you and Emma and made us a real family. Emma put her arm around Sophie. It was the best day for me too because I got a sister. Mike felt tears in his eyes. It was the best day for me because I got to see how brave and strong my girls are. As they stood there together, another car pulled over. A woman got out looking confused. Excuse me, she called to them. I'm sorry to bother you, but I think I'm lost. I'm looking for the children's hospital and my GPS stopped working. Mike immediately stepped forward. I know exactly where that is. It's about 10 minutes from here. Is everything okay? The woman's eyes filled with tears. My grandson was in an accident. I'm driving in from out of state and I've been lost for an hour. I'm so worried. Follow us, Mike said without hesitation. We'll take you right there. Oh, thank you so much. I don't know how to repay you. No repayment needed, Mike smiled. Just help someone else when you get the chance. As they drove to the hospital with the woman following behind them, Sophie said, See? Keeps going around and around. Someone helps someone, then they help someone else. That's called paying it forward, Emma explained to her sister. I like that, Sophie said. Let's always do that. Mike Johnson-Chin stood at his office window, looking out at the city skyline. As Director of Community Development for Chin Industries, he had helped launch programs that had assisted thousands of families over the past decade. On his desk was a letter from a young woman named Maria. She had been one of the first recipients of their single-parent scholarship program 10 years ago. Now she was a nurse, and she had just started her own nonprofit to help immigrant families access healthcare. The kindness you showed my family when we had nothing gave me hope, Maria had written. Now I spend my days trying to give that same hope to others. Thank you for teaching me that one person's kindness can change everything. Victoria appeared in his doorway holding 2 cups of coffee. After 10 years of marriage, she still brought him coffee every afternoon at 3 p.m. Good letter? She asked, settling into the chair across from his desk. The best kind, Mike smiled, handing her the letter to read. As Victoria read, Mike looked at the family photo on his desk. Emma was now 19, a sophomore at college studying social work. Sophie was 18 and had just started her first year of college, majoring in emergency management because she wanted to help people like Daddy Mike helped me. Both girls had grown up understanding that their family's wealth came with responsibility. They spent their summers volunteering, their Christmas breaks serving at homeless shelters, and their spring breaks building houses with Habitat for Humanity. They're good kids, Victoria said, finishing the letter and following Mike's gaze to the family photo. They're good people, Mike corrected. Just like their mom. Victoria blushed even after all these years. I think I learned how to be a good person from watching you. We learned from each other. Their conversation was interrupted by Mike's assistant. Mr. Johnson-Chin? There's a young man here to see you. He says he doesn't have an appointment, but it's about the scholarship program. Mike and Victoria exchanged looks. They had an open-door policy for anyone who needed help. Send him in, Mike said. A nervous-looking young man entered the office. He was about 25, wearing his best clothes, which weren't very good. He was twisting a baseball cap in his hands. Mr. Johnson-Chin? Ma'am? I'm sorry to bother you. I'm David Rodriguez. I was one of your scholarship kids about 8 years ago. Mike immediately stood up and shook the young man's hand. David? Of course. You were studying automotive repair, right? How are you doing? David's face lit up. You remember me? I remember everyone, Mike said warmly. Sit down, tell us how you're doing. Well, that's why I'm here. David sat on the edge of his chair, still nervous. I finished school, got a job at the Ford dealership, worked my way up. Last month, I bought the shop from my boss who was retiring. That's wonderful, Victoria exclaimed. It is, and it's all because you two gave me a chance when nobody else would. David's voice got thick with emotion. But that's not why I'm here. I'm here because I want to do what you do. He pulled out a wrinkled piece of paper. I drew up a business plan. I want to start a program where kids from rough neighborhoods can come to my shop after school. I'll teach them about cars, give them job skills, maybe help some of them start their own businesses someday. Mike and Victoria looked at the hand-drawn business plan. It was simple but thoughtful, clearly the work of someone who had put a lot of heart into it. This is fantastic, David, Mike said. What can we do to help? David looked surprised. I was hoping maybe you could give me some advice. I don't know anything about running a nonprofit. We can do better than advice, Victoria said, looking at Mike who was already nodding. We can provide startup funding and help you get established. David stared at them. You would do that? David, Mike said gently, 8 years ago we invested in you because we believed in your potential. Look how that turned out. Now you want to invest in other kids the same way. Of course we'll help you. David started crying right there in the office. I don't know how to thank you. Thank us by helping those kids, Victoria said. And someday when they're successful they'll help other kids. That's how it works. After David left, promising to call the next day to set up a proper meeting, Mike and Victoria sat quietly in the office. You know, Victoria said, I used to think success was about how much money you made or how many companies you owned. What do you think it is now? I think success is about how many people are better off because they knew you. Mike smiled. By that measure, we're the richest people in the world. No, Victoria said, taking his hand. By that measure, we're exactly as rich as we're supposed to be. As the sun set over the city, Mike thought about that scared little girl in the burning car who had changed his life forever. He thought about his daughter Emma, who had taught him that love multiplies when you share it. He thought about Victoria, who had shown him that sometimes the most unlikely people become the most important people in your life. But mostly he thought about all the David Rodriguez's out there, young people who just needed someone to believe in them, families who just needed someone to help them through a tough time, children who just needed someone to show them kindness. Tomorrow Mike would wake up and go to work and he would help more people. Victoria would do the same. Emma would study to become a social worker so she could help families stay together. Sophie would learn about emergency management so she could help people during their worst moments. And somewhere in the city, David Rodriguez would be teaching a teenager how to change oil, giving that kid hope for a better future. The circle would continue, growing wider and wider, all because one single dad saw a little girl in trouble and decided to help. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness create the biggest changes in the world. And sometimes when you save someone else, you end up saving yourself too.